Why hello and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, and today I'm going to do another review and breakdown of episode 6 of the Rings of Power. Now, if you did not see my episode 5 review, which I was very disappointed with episode 5, as you might have seen, but again, you know me, I'm a half-full kind of guy, right? When it comes to things, a half-full, glass-full, that old saying, right? I look at things more positively, but in episode 5, I was very disappointed with a lot of the butchering that happened with storytelling and lore changes. But, I'm going to start basically saying that the Rings of Power is a multiverse version of Middle-earth. It's not canon. Of course, we already knew that there was going to be a lot of made-up stuff. I was giving the benefit of the doubt, but it's so changed now that I'm basically going to just start calling it the multiverse. Where, like, for me, Lotro does a much better job. The Lord of the Rings Online MMO, they do a much better job of staying to lore with made-up things. So I consider them more, like, along with canon. Where Rings of Power, I'm going to consider, like, same locations, same names of characters, different dimension. They make different choices. They go different places, right? They act different, right? That's kind of like, like Marvel does, right? With the dimension things. Like, Into the Spider-Verse. Just multiple characters. Lots of Spider-Mans, but they are all different worlds. Different things, same name, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pop right back in now to episode 6 review. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you do enjoy. And remember, guys, be civil in the comments. Again, if you like this stuff, if you like something I dislike, that is totally okay. If you dislike something that I like, that is totally okay. I really would just love it if you guys would give me comments that are things you actually disliked and liked with, like, information. Not just, I hated that. Or, I loved it. Right? Like, that's fine. You can make that comment, but I'm just going to kind of ignore it if you're just like, it's crap. It's like, okay, what did you not like about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want just copy and pasted answers from, what's generic, what you heard, right? Just say what you really disliked or liked, right? If you didn't watch it, that's totally fine. If you're here just because you want to hear Zollin Ironshield's opinion and you kind of want all the spoilers, remember there isn't going to be spoilers. There is going to be lots because I'm going through the video and I'll do it with no sound with through little images. Just remember that too. All right, my friends, so let's do this. So episode 5, a little bit disappointing. I was bummed because episode 4 seemed like it was sort of starting to go in the right way. And then episode 5 just blew it out of the water for me. I was just very disappointed. I didn't like how they did the whole story that somehow elf essence and Balrog essence with a Silmaril and a tree on the top of Misty Mountains with a lightning bolt created Mithril, and that the elves need the Mithril to get that life essence so they won't die. That is all nothing. That has nothing to do with the lore at all in any way. For one, it belittles Mithril for me because it's saying that a Balrog evil essence and an elf essence somehow created it with a Silmaril, which the Silmarils were lost. They're not around. Why would they be inside a tree, right? And also, why in the world... The elves do not need essence from that random elf that's not named in their whatever legend they created. And it also gives a claim to the elves that they're the ones that created Mithril. Like an elf essence with a Balrog essence and a Silmaril. What? No. Mithril is its own thing. The Silmarils were their own thing. Don't link those, right? That's a no-no. I know they're trying to tie it together to make it more epic, and why the elves somehow knew the dwarves. It just doesn't make sense. So the dwarves are the ones that found Mithril, and the reason I believe that the elves learned about it later was because they were trying to trade with them. Tolkien doesn't really go into that. I understand they were trying to link something, but it doesn't make sense to me that the elves would just know about the Mithril, especially after all the work they sent out. So there's no point that Elrond went to Khazad-dûm if they already knew that it existed. Anyway, that's all I have to say about last episode. Let's move into this episode. Previous, they show the previous, blah, 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 blah. We're going to skip that. The intro... All right, so let's get into this. So we start with a awesome gauntlet, which I thought was super cool. And then we basically see him basically saying, he says brothers and sisters, which I'm fine with because there are orc girls. I talk about that in my orc video. There definitely got to be orc girls because they were corrupted by elves. They were elves that were corrupted, right? So there is going to be male and females of them. You're not going to see much difference because they're all corrupted monsters. Right? You can see that one man who joined him is there and some other humans, right, that joined, and they're basically going to attack the tower now, right? So again, episode 5 and 6 are really tightly linked, okay? So he has a speech here. Some of it I like, some of it I don't really like how they're trying to make there's a little bit of trying to make the orcs more like a people, but there is a reason why this guy's saying it, Okay, so didn't really like that as much. It did show they have this evil leader, right? So I'm gonna say overall there was parts I liked about this parts and parts I disliked. Okay. Lore-wise, I think the orcs look great. I know some people don't like the orcs, but for me personally, the orcs are lore accurate. Okay, they look good. I love the practical. Another thing I liked, the practical effects. I love that the orcs aren't CGI, that they're armored, and there's a bunch of them here with real torches. I think that's cool. I like that. That was well done in this episode. So basically, you know, he's saying stuff. Again, he looks kind of like an elf. We're thinking he's Sauron. I might have given you spoilers in the last review, but we do find some stuff out in this one, which I'm kind of glad because he's kind of not feeling... I'm just going to tell you right now, guys. Remember the spoilers in this, okay? Ready? He's not Sauron, okay? We found that out in this episode. I'll show you in a minute. But basically, we'll tell you what he is once we get to that point. But I actually like that he wasn't Sauron because he doesn't feel like Sauron. It also makes sense why he got angry when this guy called him Sauron, okay? So... We'll explain it, okay? So they get in, search the building. Remember the last one I told you they figured out they're gonna rig the tower to break it and make it crumble because it's so old. The elf's up here. He's listening. He's waiting. Basically, they're looking around, and this elf guy sees this, and he's like, "Oh, this is something, right? This is something special, basically." And he goes, you know, we're looking for him. This guy, you know, he's pretty cool looking orc. I like how he looks. Okay, this whole part's fine. I enjoyed this part. And then he starts shooting at him, and then he shoots a fire arrow. This is something, I'm sorry, I dislike this a lot. So basically, he jumps down. He shoots a fire arrow. Hold on. Where did he shoot? It's so fast that I'm not going to be able to find this spot for you guys to see. He says, I need you to do something for me. This guy says, right, to the old guy, the human. So he's like, okay, right? And basically, the elf shoots a fire arrow at the tower, and he breaks a rope that makes the whole tower come down. I know they probably rigged it, but one fire arrow shoots this giant rope like this big, and it just instantly just fries the rope. That's so unrealistic. Dislike. I don't like that. I want realism. Like, make it something that has like a little bit of gunpowder in it or something, or some kind of oil. Like maybe they put oil on the rope, but it was so fast. But anyway, then the tower starts falling. They're like, get out! And basically the tower collapses, and they're already the people are already down in the village, and like, we have to prepare, right? We probably killed most of them, kind of thing, right? So, then we get a shot of the Numenorian ships. Basically, they're traveling now, right, from the last episode. He wakes up. Isildur, he kind of just walking around the ship. He goes up to the top, and he looks out, and then Galadriel comes up behind him, and they actually have a good conversation. I actually like this conversation. See her face right here? You know how I was ragging on it last episode? Right, a lot? This is good. This is a more regal-looking face that she has on right now. She doesn't look like she's trying to be prideful. She just has a generic-looking, I'm epic face, right? So I like it, and I like this conversation, okay? This conversation was good, too. Lore-accurate thing coming up. Basically what happens is she says, you know, he says, oh, I can't see it yet from the sunrise. And she goes, oh, you'll be able to see it soon. He's like, you can already see the shore? She's like, I've been able to see it for an hour, right? Because she has elf eyes, right? They have the ability to see really far away. So, again, look at her face. Her face is so much better in this episode in the way she's got a kind of a smirk on it. She's kind of like, you know, oh, you're a cute young human, right? Like, not cute as in like she likes him, cute as in like he's so innocent and doesn't really like know about anything kind of idea. It's a much better face. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Again, she should already technically be married, even though they skipped that out. So again, I don't think I did this in the last episode, but lore the accuracy, she should already be married. But again, they don't do anything to make it where it would be. Again, her face looks fine here. Again, her face still looks fine to me. It's more like she's being inquisitive on why is he here. He goes, well, I'm a stable boy kind of thing now. And then she realizes he looks a lot like, she realizes it's Elendil's son, right? Isildur. And what happened to your mother? And he's like, oh, he doesn't really talk about it. Again, her face looks fine there. Again, I know I'm going like that's fine. That face, that looks more like she's talking like, yeah, much better. And even that smile, that's fine. That thing makes me think a little bit more about Galadriel, because she smiles a lot like Blanche's version in Lord of the Rings. So that's nice. And then he sees the land, right? And it's the first time he's ever been off Numenor. So he's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So that's cool. I like this part. I thought it was good. Already gave it a like. And then his dad comes up and says, soldier. And he's like he says, yes, captain or whatever. And he leaves. And she's like, basically, again, that face is fine. I don't know what it is about episode 5, you guys, but it was just getting to me. I don't know what it was. But that is a more regal, very little expression, but you can kind of get across that she's listening, she's contemplating, right? So that's a good face. I enjoyed that more. Again, she's talking, and how did his mother die? Well, she drowned, he said. It's like, oh, okay. Which I'm trying to remember. He's such a great character. I really like his character. He's so, I'm going to just say lore accurate, because it just feels like what that character would be like. Because he seems regal. He seems like he'll be a king, which of course he does become a king, right? He becomes the High King of Arnor, and then Gondor. Isildur becomes kind of in charge of Gondor. The water looks fantastic, by the way. Love, the water looks fantastic. The CGI on the background, it feels like they're on the water on a boat. Like, it does not look CGI'd whatsoever. So I don't know if they put it over an actual image of a real ocean that they took. Maybe that's what they did. Or if it's CGI, it's impressive. So then we get this awesome map. We see a cool map. Basically, they show us more maps. I'm very glad they're doing maps again. So I'm going to say enjoy, and I'm also going to say a lore correct thing, because basically they show how they're going to get up there, and basically they talk about they're going to come up the river, right? Which is the same river that they came up to save Gondor in the, right, with the Oathbreakers, right, when they took the Umbar ships. But they're going to come up the river, and they're going to come through the Morgul Vale, right, past where later Minas Ithil will be made, and later it'll be Minas Morgul, right? And they're going to come in and down to where the Southernlands are, which are right here, and this is Mordor. So this is in the south part of Mordor. Under her hand is the bottom mountain range, right? The square of Mordor. So very realistic. I like it a lot, even though the Southernlands are kind of made up, these people. It's cool. I like it. So he's trying to destroy the sword that he now has from the kid, because he knows something's weird about it. He can't break it. He's like, this is made by someone else. So again, I enjoyed that part, enjoyed that part. Again, a lot of stuff I enjoyed in the beginning of this episode. I love the houses, what they look like, the feel. I was getting into this episode. I was starting to really enjoy this episode. So, compared to the previous episode that I was disappointed in. So now that we're gonna defend our home, he gives a great speech, okay? Again, this whole part I like. So they're like, we're gonna basically trap them and get them, right? All right, so they're like, yes, and this guy like respects the elf now. This one guy, even though he's a new guy, and of course, Mr. Cowman is here too. I like that he's like a character, right, in the story. They have a really good. Her and her son have a good conversation. It's really cute. He basically says, are we gonna be okay? And it's sweet. It's a sweet mother-son moment. For me, having a really good mom, I thought that was touching. I thought it was cute. Maybe some people will find it corny, but I didn't. I thought it was a nice conversation. It made me feel like this whole scene is kind of like a little bit of copy paste again from the Helm's Deep moment, when they're all kind of giving their, they're going to send all their children and wives and elderly into the Glittering Caves, and they're all going to fight the Uruk-hai army that's coming to Helm's Deep. Similar feeling. Again, this whole battle, this whole thing was actually really, really good. This episode was much better than 5. Because the worst part is, a lot of this is made up, and it's better than the other stuff because they butchered the other lore. They shouldn't have done that with episode 5. It's so disappointing, man. If I was just there, if I could have just been there and been like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. That'll make everyone upset and they won't like it. You should do this. You have rights to this part. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to say that I would be the best and I would be a better writer, but I don't know, man. They just had a group of Tolkien fans that really love Tolkien right there. Now, granted, I know the people who wrote it. I don't want to... it's just hard, right? Because, I don't want to be mean to the two writers because I know they really do like Tolkien. I've heard they really tried things. And I know they're trying to, mash things in. They don't have all the rights, even though that's never a full excuse, right? To have all the rights. But, so I don't want to be mean, but a lot of the writing is not very good. Now, this part is actually well done. Speaking of writing, being good or bad, I thought this writing was good. There's one thing I disliked, okay? So they have a conversation. He gives her the seed. He said, there's a tradition we have as elves to plant a seed before we go to battle. Okay, made up, but fine. I liked it. Then he goes over and he says, you know, we believe that there's a Valar that watches over things that grow. They know that. They don't believe that. They know that. So I'm going to actually have to say a lore inaccuracy and a dislike, because that bothered me when I heard that. Because I was like, wait, you're an elf. You know there's one of the... you know that there's one that watches over the plants. You don't believe it. It's not like it's a religion. You actually know. So, I mean, maybe that was just a miswriting in the script, but like thinking about it from a lore perspective, but whatever. So anyway, then they have a little conversation, and they finally, you know, they kiss. It's like, okay, there's their made-up little love story. Gag. Sorry. It was fine. It wasn't very long. It wasn't painful. But it was fine. So this is a great shot right here. So anyway, I didn't dislike that part, but I didn't really like it either that much. You can see out over there, I believe that mountain is supposed to be Mount Doom. I'm pretty sure. But if you notice, it's not a lava volcano. Right? So from a lore perspective, again, I love the scenery. I love what it looks like. Okay, so night falls. Cool moonshot, just like they did in the Lord of the Rings. Nod to the Lord of the Rings series, right? All right, so, and then basically, it's really, really dark. They're waiting. He's using his elf eyes to kind of watch for people. And then they see torches come in, and they're basically waiting. They're going to bring them into a trap. So the kid stays inside because his mom said to protect the women and children kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. So then here comes all the orcs over the bridge. Blah, 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 blah. So the orcs come over the bridge, and there's a few orcs in the front here. And they're like, they're real realistic, and I love it. And again, I enjoy because they look real. They're not CGI. They're really well done. I love the sounds they're making. They sound like the orcs from Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's, and it's just good. It's well done. This music does not fit what's about to happen, though. So basically what happens is the orc comes up. She's trying to light it with this thing. It's like a little painful, a little bit of a dislike, because it's like, why wouldn't you have had something ready? Like my sister was saying, why wouldn't she have had a little torch ready, just hidden the light? You know what I mean? But basically what happens is this orc comes around the cart. He surprises him. He slashes the girl that's helping him. She gets cut and dies immediately. Again, I like the fact that there's actual death happening. They're showing how orcs are actually a threat. Because in the Lord of the Rings series, we have all these basically superheroes, even though they're not, with the Fellowship. They're all amazing fighters. So orcs are like nothing. They're just kicking them aside like they're nothing, right? But to random villagers, orcs are deadly, dude. Like, so I like that. So that's something I do like, okay? So I like that they show that here. So basically, she kills the orc. She cuts his throat. She cuts his throat with one of the what is it? The scythe that you cut the fields with. And I like that. It's another thing I liked because I was like, that's really realistic, right? So that was really cool. I like the fact that she did that, right? And then they're like, and they're like, haha, they missed us, right? And the fire covers their leaving entrance. And then another one comes down and he goes, missed us, and he gets hit by it, the cart of fire, and they're all caught in basically a little circle of fire in between the two houses, right? And then what happens is basically they basically all come up off the roofs and start shooting them, right? And the orcs, of course, have arrows and they're shooting back and people are dying from arrows, but they're having a pretty legit fight. It's actually pretty good with choreography. It's actually decent. Like, the visuals are good, all that kind of stuff. And then, so that was all good. That was all good and fine. I like that. I enjoyed it. Then this orc, who I believe might be a half orc or half troll, which is kind of like an orc and troll mix, which is a thing in the stories and is in Lord of the Rings Online too. But basically he starts fighting this guy and he's just way stronger than the elf. He's kind of getting the crap beat out of him, but he's fighting pretty good, but he's just getting thrown around, man, which is funny. Little side comment. You remember the very beginning in episode 1, how that troll is throwing around Galadriel's friends and they just all get up after like there's no issue. Oh, we're all fine. Well, he's like, you know, like it's like so much more realistic because an elf, even though they have healing abilities, they feel the pain of being thrown against a rock, right, by a huge monster. So I like that. I thought it was more realistic here than the episode 1, that's for sure. So again, they're fighting. They're showing some of the ladies using pitchforks and like guys and the farmers are like stabbing them with spears, and the fight felt to me, I was brought into it being like, oh, this is an awesome fight, right? Like, oh, they're fighting for their lives even though they're not very good fighters, right? So it felt realistic in that way to me. Anyway, let's just keep going through here. The orcs like got him. Basically, this part, if you have troubles with stuff, he stabbed the half orc or big giant orc in the eye with like a like a stick or a metal thing, and the orc pulls it out, and then they do the whole really close to his eye thing with the spear, right? Like he's like, he's like holding it back. He's not about to stab him through the eye, basically into the head. And Bronwyn comes up behind the orc, which I find realistic. She sneaks up on him and she stabs him in the back of the neck and, back. And he's like, he like kills him with a big sword. And I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, and she's like doing it up high because she's a lot shorter than this giant, huge orc. So I was like, yeah, all right, I liked it. I liked it the way they had her save him. Like, I know that it would have been, it would have made me really bothered if he had turned around and she started fighting the orc and then like killed him really easy after the elf's like having such a hard time fighting him because he's so strong one-on-one. So it made sense that she could sneak up and kill him. I like that. I thought it was more realistic than having her suddenly duel him, right? Because like, for example, Awen, right, who duels things, Awen is a trained fighter in swordsmanship. This person is an herbalist. She is not. So her sneaking up and killing someone makes a lot more sense than Awen when she duels the Witch King, right? Of course, Awen kind of loses without Mary's help, but still, it made sense more for Awen because Awen is a trained Rohirrim warrior because she was royalty versus this person who's not. So I like this part. I thought it was realistic. Moving on. Again, I like realism in my stories, even if it's fantasy. I like it to be able to make sense. Or have some way to make something make sense. Does that make sense? All right, moving on. So basically, then they win, and they're like, we won. And then they look around, and the farmer's like, good job, son. Like, you know what I mean? The cow farmer with the gross, horrible poor cow that was infected. Then they realize, they take off these orcs' helmets, and they realize, it's all their friends. It's basically people that turned on him and went to join Sauron or that other guy, right? So they're like, this isn't black blood, it's regular blood. And they find out, and they're like, oh, this is terrible, right? And also shows how terrible their friends were, man. They weren't brainwashed. They just were so, like, they're like, we're going to go kill our original neighbors. Like, holy crap, that's evil. But again, I like it because it shows that there's evil and good people in the world, right? Of every race. All right, so basically now they're inside the house. He said, the orc says, haha, we're going to get you anyway. And this guy's like, what do you mean, right? And then suddenly the old farmer guy gets shot in the back. The guy we kind of know. We have built a little attachment to the character. He gets shot in the back by 2 arrows. He's like, oh, right? And then arrows start flying out of the bushes, right? When they, like, all over the place. So, which makes sense. I like this. Because it obviously wasn't all the orcs that was with him, right? So people start dying everywhere, and he's like, they're pulling him in, and other people are dying as they run up the stairs. Some people get in, some people fall over with shot in the back, dead. One person gets shot, and the other guy picks him up, and then he gets shot, and the other guy's pulling him. Very realistic from a combat perspective. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, a realistic fight. They bring him in, but by the way, Bronwyn gets shot in the shoulder by an arrow, right? She's shot in the shoulder. He carries her in. She's like, no, help him first. The old farmer, the boy turns around and realizes the old farmer is dead, right? He died, right then. But then, they're like, they have to, get it out. So the elf's like, okay, we have to stop the bleeding, right? So the elf breaks off the arrow on the front so they could pull it out the back, right? One little thing that bothered me here. Realistically, you got to get the arrow out and then you got to stop the bleeding. But he breaks it off like at the tip. So the arrow is like this much out of her chest, right? Like this. And the arrow's still all the way out of her, it's like halfway through, right? The arrow, it's all the way out her back. So realistically, you wouldn't just break off the tip right here. You'd want to break it off as close as possible because when you pull it back through, you're pulling as little wood as you can. But no, they broke it off like at the tip, and then he pulls this big piece of wood that through her body all the way through. Not only would that damage more skin and tissue, that would hurt so bad. You'd want to break it off as close as possible so that you have as little wood passing through the wound as possible, right? Realistically, does that make sense? So that was a realism thing that I really disliked entirely because it did not make any sense to me, okay? And she shot through the shoulder, like right here. So it's not in the lung, obviously. It's not in her heart, the way they positioned it. So that was realistic, okay? That was fine. So basically what they do is they're like, oh, the special, flower seeds. Apparently they have some special properties. So she's like, you're going to have to basically seal the wound with fire. So he takes up the seeds, he sticks them in the wound, and then basically, and then they bring over a hot thing. Another person grabs a hot thing, and they basically, you know, solder her wound shut. Realistically, the only thing that makes sense is if those little seeds have some special properties of healing abilities to help coagulate the blood or whatever. Because even if you seal 2 giant wounds, that, by the way, there's so much blood pumping out, it's almost, it's kind of overboard a little bit how much blood is like pumping out of her wound in this scene. It's a big hole from an arrow, right? But it wouldn't be quite as much blood as like, it's like, because it's not like if it was in her heart or in like in a main organ, like a huge hole, then yeah, you'd have blood like coming out like crazy. But I don't think it would be like spurting out like so much blood. It would be draining out, but it's like splatting out, right? It's like, it's really gross. I mean, that's what they're trying to do for the show, right? To make it more stressful, but it didn't really feel super realistic since it's through her shoulder, right? She's still gonna have a lot of blood coming out, but not like where it's dumping out buckets practically, okay? But he throws seeds in, they singe the back, and then they singe the front, right? And then, of course, now at that point, if she's really bleeding that hard, the inside's going to start bleeding, and she might die anyway. But maybe the seeds have some special property. So I'm not going to dislike or like that part. I dislike the fact that there's a lot of blood coming out, but I'm not going to dislike or like the fact that she survives this wound, okay? In this moment, at least. There we go. He pulls, so he gets the whole arrow out, right? We just talked about that. And then, yeah, there's so much blood. There would be a lot of blood. There would be blood. I'm not saying there wouldn't be blood, but I'm just saying the amount of blood that was like spraying out would have almost been like she got shot through the heart. It's just like pumping out blood, right? Like a main artery or something. It didn't really make sense if she's through her right shoulder or whatever, or it was a left shoulder. If like there would be like that much blood bursting out, right? Unless, I mean, if it's that much, she's probably gonna die even if you seal it. Is my point. But anyway, she knocks out right after they seal it. Pain, losing blood, totally makes sense. She didn't die, but she's knocked out, right, for a minute or so. So, the son's really worried. And then those people that were shooting arrows, he comes in, Mr. Bad Guy, right? Along with all the things, and they're coming in, and basically, they come up to the door. And then we get this shot, okay? So, let's think about this from angles and perspectives, okay? So that whole part was fine, what just happened. Here comes them on their mounts. Again, in the lore, they didn't really use horses too much, but later they do in Dol Amroth and Gondor, so I'm gonna let it slide. It's fine. But I actually thought this part was pretty cool. I love the fact that her face here is fine in this part. Again, their armor colors almost look different than the other when they were on the ship. But they're basically riding in really fast as a group. It looks very real. They're obviously passing through, I believe, the Morgul Vale at this point. So that is the... Oh, wait. Hold on. No, that's not right. Hold on. The sun should be coming up. Yeah, hold on. That's not right. Something's wrong here. There's some people that were saying there was issues here with geography. So let's think. I have a little map here. So they're coming through the Morgul Vale. The sun is going to come up in the east instead of the west, correct? So it doesn't make sense the sun, they would be traveling... Huh. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking is happening. This isn't the Morgul Vale. They've already passed through the Morgul Vale, and they're traveling back west. Once they get into the Morgul Vale, they go down and around the mountains because there's like a little mountain pass inside of Mordor. We're near the lake, and they're going down to the corner left, and they're doing the opposite direction, and the sun is rising behind them. So they've been riding all night or something, right? I'd assume that is. There's also a weird thing here with the lighting differences. The sun's just coming up, so maybe that's it. But again, I'm going to say I like the fact that the horses are real horses. And we were all joking, maybe that's why their budget was so expensive, because they had to have like 500 horses. That's a lot of horses. And the armor's cool. I actually like the armor. The armor's cool on the horses. I thought the armor was fine. How realistic is it? Don't know. My sister thought it was fine. She's really into armor and horses, so she thought it was neat. So I'm going to go with her opinion, because I trust her opinion with horses. She's pretty much an expert. But again, we were just saying the armor looks cool. I don't know how realistic it would be to that perspective. So they're riding in, dun, 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 And then basically now they break in. The orcs break in, and Mr. Scary Man walks in, right? And the orcs run in and basically grab everyone and hold everyone hostage. They're not killing anyone at this point, right? And basically, he says, you should tell me where the sword is, right? The sword. So remember they found out 3 episodes ago that he knew about that they have this sword, which supposedly we think is a key, right? And basically, this part is actually really well done. I really like this part. Again, I know this is all made up lore, which is why I'm calling it the multiverse. This is just another version of Lord of the Rings, right? It's not the real canon. But basically what he says is, I do like the fact that the orcs are, I'm going to call this another lore accurate for the orcs. They are evil, right? He's evil. He basically says, tell me where it is. He's like, I'm not going to tell you, right? And he's like, all right. And basically one of the orcs just stabs a guy, like really slowly. The guy's like, ah, and then like falls over right behind him, and they're all like crying and terrified. And the orcs are like holding everyone hostage, and they have like the sword at the boy's throat, the sword over, one of the orcs is holding a sword over the neck of Bronwyn, right? Like to kill her, even though, and she's sort of woken up out of her stupor because the blood loss and stuff. And then see, there's the guy who gets stabbed in the stomach. I get, it's really dark, you guys. This is really dark, but they're showing the dark side of orcs, that orcs are evil. They are evil. Like, even bad guys in our world wouldn't always do this. There's very few, there's really evil people that would be just start stabbing people, right, to get information, right? That's really evil and scary. So, basically he's like, you know, and then another orc stabs another lady, not the main character, but another lady, and she's like, oh, you know, and then they're all like horrified, right, how evil these orcs are. So again, very realistic. I like the part. Basically though, then the boy, they're gonna kill, he's like, well, how about we kill the woman, right, on the table? And he doesn't know, and then the boy says, I know where it is. And apparently, even though the main character, the elf, hid it without anyone knowing, the boy followed him, which they kind of imply. They didn't show it very good, but they kind of implied it in one spot that the boy was over listening. It's like, oh, no one can know where it is. He tells Bronwyn, right? So the boy tells, I know where it is, and he's like, fine, show me, the bad guy. So he goes, and it's literally under a rock in the house, right? Under one of the stones, which kind of makes sense. Hide it in plain sight, so not totally wrong. But anyway, what happens is he pulls out the sword. He's like, oh, the sword. And then he tells, what's his name? One of the humans, you know, I need you to do something for me, basically. And so this part was all fine. This is actually a very entertaining episode, I thought. Even though it's all made up lore, it's entertaining for a fantasy episode. So then here comes in, he hears rumbling. So like, what's that rumbling sound, right? And basically, so they arrive, right? The Numenorians arrive. How do they know about this place? Well, I guess it's because of Halbrand, right? I guess he knows where the Sutherlands are, right? They're maybe one of his villages, right? Since he's the like long lost king, I should say. And they're traveling through, right? They're like, you know, and this whole part is actually kind of awesome. I like how they kill things. I don't know how realistic it is. They have like a chain and they like run them all over, but it's really impressive to watch. So again, really like this part. So like on that, really liked it a lot. They're like fighting. The whole fighting, the choreography of this fight is so good compared to that sword fight in episode 5 that I did not like. This is actually very entertaining to watch. It was more like what I felt like when Lord of the Rings, like the Battle of the Pelennor Fields kind of feel. So anyway, great fight. He saves his friend. This guy's obviously learned. They show that he learned what Galadriel showed him because he knows how to stab. They kind of make it very clear. This guy gets pulled off. Basically, the Queen Regent says to Isildur, go help your father, basically, because he was up on the hill with her right here. So he rides off to go help his father, who is actually getting pulled off his horse by like 5. It's realistic because he's stabbing people. He looks awesome, by the way. I'm going to say I love it. I actually like the wings. I like that they kind of represent the wings we'll see with Gondor and Arnor later, but they also kind of have the feel of almost that Roman legion kind of feel. So in real life, I like it. I like it. Now his gear, it kind of makes sense how it is. I don't know how realistic this would be unless these are special material, but I like the gear too. I thought it's cool. So, and then he basically gets pulled off his horse, and Isildur's cutting people down. Again, a great shot. Just really, really awesome. Like, that's really, really cool, right? And then he stabs another orc, right? He's riding. And then his dad's on the ground with like 5 orcs holding him down. And basically, the person who saves him is actually Halbrand comes and saves Elendil instead of Isildur. But so it's like, yeah, and then he's like, "Are you okay, Father?" When Isildur goes there, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine," right? And then basically this elf sees Galadriel and basically says, "Oh, I know who that is. She's the commander of the Northern Armies," which dislike. Sorry, too much of a lore change for me. But again, multiverse. I'm starting to consider this series as just a different version of the actual canon because it's so much made up stuff and changed stuff. But still entertaining. This episode was very entertaining for me. So basically they're chasing, she starts riding fast, and I do like that she's riding after him, and she leans down and she has Nelle, the same thing that Arwen does with her horse when she's being chased by the Nazgul. Of course, I know that's supposed to be Glorfindel in the original Lord of the Rings, but very cool to me that they added that in. So I'm gonna actually say I'm a like on that. Okay, I really like that. Okay, again, she looks good here too. Her face, like she's chasing down an enemy, right? Really good. So I like this part. She's chasing him down, and she's catching him, and then Halbrand, I don't know how realistic it is, but Halbrand, what he does is he runs up and he leans down, and he comes from the front, and he puts his spear down and basically trips the other horse, right? The other horse falls, and he falls on his face, the bad guy, right on the ground. And I'm going to say I like it, because my sister said that is something that you could do without killing the horse. And they show that the horse gets back up. They actually, so he does the cool thing, and they actually show that the horse isn't, and that it just hops back up. My sister said that is actually realistic. A horse, if you did that, would probably just fall and get back up. It might be a little bruised, but it wouldn't just necessarily break its legs, right? Because that'd be kind of sad. And he stole one of the Númenórean horses, by the way. So that I like that part. That was good. And then he goes to stab this guy, right? He's like, "You know what you've done," and he's like, basically this guy's egging him on. He's like, "Yeah, I killed someone, right?" He's like, "What did I do?" You know, that kind of thing. Conversation's fine. I'll let you watch if you want. It's not super important. She's like, "No, it won't satisfy your vengeance to kill him." Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a pretty generic thing to say in this kind of moment, but it's fine. Horse looks great. Forest is awesome, by the way. Like that. So that's a decent face where she's concerned. She's like, "You shouldn't do that." Again, I know episode 5 was ragging on her face expressions. She had a little bit better expressions than that in this episode. Again, not a whole lot of difference, but it's a little bit more regal, a little bit more in what I would think. So then basically he doesn't do it, right? He doesn't kill him. Moving on. Not important, the part. They put the orcs in chains, basically. They're all chained up. This kid's like, "I'm never going to war again." He's like, "I'm done. That's all I want." and they want to go on an expedition with Galadriel, looking for orcs in the hills, which doesn't happen in this episode, but I'm sure will happen in next. A little adventure episode, maybe. Or will it? Then we keep going, right? I'm going to skip through this a little faster. Then we get this part. This part, interesting. Okay, so you have to put in context how evil he was and the orcs were a minute ago. Because the stuff she says, she's like, "I'm going to hunt down your kind." It almost makes her seem really, really, really evil, right? And I mentioned a little side note, jump back, because this is important in episode 5. Gil-galad points out the reasons the tree, again, this is all made up. They thought one of the reasons the tree might be turning that evil corruption of their souls or whatever, of the elves, was because Galadriel was bringing in war again, which was really stupid. I didn't like in episode 5. But I like in this part where she's like, "I'm going to hunt you down," basically, and kill all your kind and your children of your orcs. And basically what he tells us here, this is really important, and I'm actually going to say Allure, I enjoyed it, okay? I'm going to say Allure correct too, because what he says is he is one of the corrupted elves of Morgoth. And I'm like, oh, that's why he's got an elf ears and he looks so bad. He's a corrupted elf. And he calls himself some kind of almost like an Uruk-hai, which is weird to me. I kind of dislike that from the lore perspective. I don't like that. But he was like one of the fallen dark elves is basically what they said. I like that. That was cool. Even if that's slightly made up from the lore from what I know, that was cool. And basically they have a good conversation. It's actually pretty good. We find out that is why they call him father, because he's one of the original corrupted elves. Right. And that's why he could be in the sun still, because technically he's still like an elf, even though I think his blood is black. Right? He's already been corrupted by Morgoth. He's not been tortured enough to not look like an elf anymore, like some of the orcs. But maybe that's why they're his children. Maybe they're like his spawn, right? The orcs, and that's why he loves them. That's why he didn't like Sauron or whatever as much, because he's like, I'm not Sauron kind of thing. So anyway, kind of cool. I know he's a made-up character, but I actually enjoyed that part. I thought this part was good. Then she's about to kill him, and Halbrand steps in and says, do not kill him, you know? It's not going to satisfy your vengeance either. And she's like, you're right. You know, like that kind of thing. And she's really, really... Here's the thing. She's a little bit obsessed still, like she was in the first episodes, with chasing Sauron. But it kind of makes more sense why she hates this guy. Because he's basically, not only is he corrupted as from by Morgoth, because remember, I think they fell to Morgoth. Or a lot of them were captured and tortured to Morgoth. So he's kind of brainwashed. Not only that, he's like being the evil one right now. He's himself being evil. Where she's like, you're just corrupted. And then he goes, they're my children, right? The orcs. And she's like, no, they're your slaves. And I like that line. Because that is, the orcs in Lord of the Rings are not a race within, they're a corrupted, perverted thing with what she says and race. So even though I'm calling it a multiverse, from perspective of following the lore of what orcs are and how evil they are, it was good, this part. I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was... I like his acting, too. He's really evil. And basically, he says that Sauron was trying to meddle with the unseen world, and it wasn't letting him, basically. He was trying to create the unseen world, is what he's saying. Which is... That's lore. We all know about the unseen world and the seen world, right? The unseen world is like the Wraith world, right? And elves, high elves, are kind of in both worlds, too. So, that's good. Yeah. It was fine. I liked it. So anyway, then we go through and he's like, you know, you're gonna kill me. And we were all laughing. We're like, well, he doesn't need his hands, does he? Our family, because he's so evil at this point. After we watched what he did, he's a pretty evil guy. So it makes sense now that he has elf ears and he looks so gross because he's like corrupt. He's one of the corrupted elves that maybe wasn't corrupted as far as looking like an orc, but still was one of the original corrupted orcs of Morgoth. So he's a lieutenant of Sauron kind of idea, right? He's trying to accomplish something. And she's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Why do you need that sword kind of thing, right? And then Halbrand stops her from killing him, blah, blah, blah. And then he looks up, and then they have this little conversation here, right? At first I was like, oh no, they're not doing a love thing, right, between Galadriel and Halbrand, because that would be weird, right? That would be really weird. They don't. I don't feel like it is. I'm going to say I don't like this part, though I disliked it. But they're basically saying, you know, oh, we both felt better. Thank you for saving me from not killing him originally. And she said, well, thank you for saving me from not killing him. Kind of like, so they didn't take vengeance and drop to the dark side. Let's think Star Wars terms. They didn't go to the dark side, right? And they're like, but we both felt that, like, we were defeating evil and fighting, and hopefully we can hold on to that. We were battling for good kind of thing, is what I got the gist from this conversation. Still not very good. That's what I dislike. I didn't really like it. It kind of was like, eh. And I wasn't sure at first what they were trying to do. I was like, oh no, they're not trying to do a love thing, are they? I was like, no, I don't think that's what they're doing. It doesn't feel like that, the way they did it. And she should technically already be married. So, and then we get this nice little celebration, and again, the face thing, dude. She's like so intense. That was so intense, those faces. But I mean, that's fine. That one, I didn't care about that. I'm sorry, I'll stop ragging on her face. Like, it's not her face, it's her expressions. I'm ragging on her expressions, by the way. When I say face in the previous review and this review, I'm talking about her expressions. Just make that very clear. I know it's already 40 minutes in the video, but so then they have this really happy thing, and basically what happens here is that she meets the lady, and they actually have a very nice conversation. I was pleasantly surprised with this conversation. Surprised. She basically says, I didn't want to be a leader. I was kind of thrust on me. And she's like, no good leader does. And it's like, I know that's a real generic thing, but that's really true, right? And Halbrand basically, Galadriel brings back the, basically she says, you're our new king? And he goes, yes. Basically, he's like, yeah, I'll be the king. And then they're all happy and excited about, right, that there's promised king, or supposedly in the made-up story for this Rings of Power, is back for the Sutherlands. Okay, so they're all happy about it. That's great. Galadriel gives him back the thing or whatever. That's kind of weird to me. I'm gonna say dislike because it's kind of weird that she just give it back. But he brings it to the kid, and then he gives it to the kid. He says, you know, do it with be rid of it. Be rid of the sword. Give it to the Númenóreans so they can cast it into the sea, is basically what he says to the kid. That's fine, right? I don't see anything wrong with that. But then, it gives it to the kid. The kid's like, this is a weird. He sees his scar, which is like, from using the sword where he like stabbed it to get blood out to like use it. Basically, he opens the thing, and it's a freaking axe. It's not the sword. He's like, right? Like. I'm like, yes, that's way too simple. You know what I mean? Well, who has the sword then? This guy has the sword. Now, I know he's a made-up character, and I know this whole thing with the sword is made up, and this whatever key it is. But basically, he stabs it in his arm, and he goes back to the tower that has this thing in it, right? And it has the whole symbol with the sword. And this is good. I like this, okay? This is something that I enjoyed. I don't know if you guys liked it. Leave a comment. But he sticks a sword in. I kind of like it. He's this bad guy. My sister thinks he might be one of the characters from the... like one of the Dunlendings from Lord of the Rings, like originally 20 years ago as an actor. It'd be kind of cool if it was the same person, but anyone knows, let me know. What happens is when he puts this in and triggers it, a rumble happens near the tower, and what happens is a big dam thing it releases, all right? And basically, if you, let's see if I can get to it. Can I get to the actual dam releasing? So the dam opens and this whole lake starts falling down, and I'm thinking, oh, crap, they're gonna flood the whole entire valley, right? They're gonna kill everybody, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy twist, right? Well, and then it's coming down, crashing down, right? This huge amount of water, kind of like, again, a little bit of copy paste from the Two Towers, right, with the Ents breaking the dam, but it crashes down. It doesn't go through the valley that I was thinking, right? And then we get a conversation here that I thought was good, where he says the horse is linked to you. It senses you're upset, Isildur, basically, because his horse is upset. And he talks to it like Aragorn, with like an elven tongue. And I was like, yes, Lord correct. I love it. They can really communicate with their horses. They love their horses just like the elves, right? The Númenóreans did. And basically he talks in that tongue, and he's like, can you teach me? The son, he's like, yeah, of course I can teach you. They said, your mother taught me, basically is what he said. That's kind of cool, right? So it was a neat part. I liked it. It added character building that didn't, even if it is made up a little bit, I enjoyed it. I think it's cool, though, that they tied it into, like, Aragorn being good at talking to horses. But, of course, Aragorn was good at talking to horses because he lived in Rivendell. So, but the Númenóreans were good with their horses, so maybe they did know some Elvish, because this guy apparently knows Elvish, which would make sense if he's honorable to remember the elves. And then they hear bang, right? Right when they're, sweet moment, bang! All the water starts going boom out of every hole. Remember that the orcs dug? So the water starts rushing through the holes, right? And right now I'm going, what's going on here, right? And then it starts gushing out of all these things they made, all these holes, right? And going down their little trench they built. Remember the trench they were digging? That seemed kind of weird. Why were they digging a trench to travel around instead of just building some kind of cover from the sun? Why were they digging a trench? Well, this kind of actually this was actually good story writing. This is actually pretty cool, okay? So it keeps going. What happens is it gets to a mountain. The trench goes to the bottom of a mountain. Well, if you know your geology, which I do like, from a scientific point of view, what happens when a lot of water hits lava underground with the pressure? It causes an eruption. Okay? You get where this is going? I actually thought this was cool. All right, I enjoyed this a lot. So the water, basically that trench was leading to this hole that's opens under the mountain, right? And it gushes in literally a massive lake of water, right? Just gushes in to Mount Doom. I said Mount Doom. Into the mountain. And, well, what basically happens is a huge explosion starts happening, and they all see it, right? The water's coming in to the volcano. Pretty cool animation. So again, loved it. I'm not gonna put a lore correct because Tolkien never says how Mount Doom started. It could have just been already started in Tolkien's mind. But I like this idea. I thought it was cool. So even from a different perspective, a different universe, there's a cool idea of how it started. So anyway, basically it explodes. So it falls in the water, and then Mount Doom. The animation is amazing. Loved it. Look at that. The top of the mountain blows off, and basically the dormant volcano, it goes off, right? Which makes sense why at the beginning of this episode he says, well, I will get you where you will no longer be burned and I won't be able to see the sun anymore, is what that Dark Elf said, right? Who we know is not Sauron now. So he was doing this bidding for Sauron probably, because he knows Sauron's off somewhere else still, right? Sauron has not been introduced yet in this season. Kind of a bummer, probably not going to be, but it does kind of build it up a little better from a... So anyway, they're like, oh no, right? And then it's really realistic, dude. Like, look, Okay, so if this is the Nue Dante, which means the smoke that's 300 or 400 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever, they're all dead. If it's not, they might die from breathing it, right? But these meteors, I mean, not meteors, but the rocks that are exploded start falling all over the place, and they're freaking out, right? They're like, oh my gosh. It's like there's freaking comets landing everywhere, dude. So remember when we thought maybe, yeah, it's just, dude, it's pretty epic, and people are exploding, and houses are exploding, and yeah, it actually is rather realistic, and she's just standing there. So realistic there, dislike the fact she's just standing there staring at it, like, oh no. Like, what are you gonna do, Galadriel? And she's like running, right? And everyone's like, get behind the thing. There's like a rock wall they're gonna try to get behind, right? So he's trying to lead people over there. So is the queen. They're all running for their lives, kind of thing. And then they just see this for the end of the episode and just. Now, realistically, you guys, if this was like a Nue Dante, which is the terminology for this cloud that will literally just turn you to a pillar of salt, pretty much, just instantly fry you in place. Yeah, they're dead. I don't think Galadriel should live through it too. But if it's not like scalding hot, it's just ash flying through, it's not full of heat, even though it looks like there's a whole lot of fire in that cloud. There's a possibility that some of them could survive. I don't know how they're going to survive with their lungs, though, after that. Oh, sounds horrible. You'd probably die from that. But anyway, they show that last second, and then, you know, she's like, oh, dang it. And then the smoke just kind of just destroys all the houses, and just like, here comes the wave, and then boom, right? End of the episode. So, this episode, for me, do you like my little top up here? I have like a little Rivendell top now to my thing. All right, anyway, side note. I enjoyed that episode more, but the worst part was about that episode was that so much was just made up plot. It had nothing to do with the actual lore, right? So like, I am gonna do another dislike to lore and just dislike in general on my things, because I think I missed some things there. But again, there's a lot of stuff I enjoyed. If this was a standalone fantasy series, I would have been like, that was a pretty good episode, right? I enjoyed that. But it's supposed to be based in Middle Earth, and it's like, meh, right? Again, it was better than episode 5. Episode 5 just butchered lore. That's why in episode 5, I officially I'm going to start calling this the multiverse, is another dimension, another option of what happens within the lands of Middle Earth with the named characters. There's a lot of made up characters, and they're really changing a lot of things. So we can enjoy what we can enjoy. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings if you do really like it. But me personally, I was a little bit disappointed in episode 5 a lot. It's like a 4 out of 10. This one for me was like a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 maybe. I like the orcs. I'm always the kind of glass half full kind of guy. I'm not really I'm not super optimistic that this series would ever become anything close to being the accurate lore now, at this point. Now that we've seen 6 episodes, I'm just like, eh. Yeah, they either don't have enough rights, but I don't think that's an excuse for what's happening. By the way, I think they could still do stuff a little bit better. Like, they did not need to make up that whole story about Mithril in the episode. Oh, gosh. I just didn't like it. It just bothered me. It belittled Silmarils. It belittled Mithril. It belittled the fact that somehow elves already knew about the Mithril, then the dwarves found, and that, like, somehow elves have a claim to it because it's, like, their essence. It's like, what the heck? Episode 5 really freaked me out, guys. But episode 6 was better. I like the fact that he wasn't Sauron. He was a made-up character. So the entire story here is all made up in episode 6. Everything's made up. Even how Mount Doom goes off. But I like how Mount Doom goes off. That is something that I actually thoroughly enjoyed because it felt realistic. I was like, that makes so much sense. So he started Mount Doom because they want to start covering Mordor in darkness so the orcs don't have to be in the sun. Oh, right? So that made sense to me. We'll see where else they'll take that. But anyway, my friends, I hope that you enjoyed the little review and breakdown. And again, you guys, just so you know, me personally, this will never be on the same level to me as Peter Jackson's adaptations or the real Tolkien lore. Sorry. Or Lotro. Those will all be held higher in my mind. Those all fit with the canon lore. Even Lotro's made up stuff fits better with canon. The game Lotro, Lord of the Rings Online, if you're curious what I'm talking about. They do a better job than Rings of Power is doing. And just story writing is just not that great. This one, the made-up story writing was a lot better than episode 5, where they, like I was saying, messed a lot up, that I felt like. Even though still, there's stuff I still liked. There's stuff they're doing right. The music is just all overall a little bit disappointing to me. There's not enough epic music. There was better music in this one, in episode 6 and in episode 5. But it still just doesn't feel as epic as the Lord of the Rings music and the Hobbit adaptations. And yeah, I'm just so you guys know, no matter where you sit in the spectrum, if you're someone that really, really hates the series, and no matter what, you're not going to watch it, or if you're someone that really, really loves it and you love everything about it, or if you're someone in the middle like me, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of leaning more towards I dislike it as in it's not canon lore. I'm more just going to enjoy it as a fantasy series, which is kind of disappointing. I feel like it could be a lot better. But yeah, that's my honest opinion, guys. So be nice in the comments to each other. Nice to me. And if you, I'd really love real detailed information on things you like or dislike. I'd love to hear people's opinions, even if I don't agree, or I do agree. I just give me your honest opinion. So just give me a one-word thing that's copy and pasted, like I said at the beginning. You know, like I hate it. It's like, okay, fine. Thanks for adding that no addition to the conversation. You know, again, that's fine if you do that. I'm not gonna like hate you forever if you're someone that always is on the channel. But yeah, just give us some good feedback. I love to hear good feedback. What did you like? What did you dislike? What did you do? You agree with me on things? Do you disagree? What do you know, that kind of stuff? That's fine. Just do it in a civil way, happy way. I love to hear that. I like normal Discord, not battling Discord. No aggressive negotiations, as they say in Star Wars. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Quick little shout out and thank you to my Patreons. They're the best. Thanks for supporting the channel. And for you guys for liking and subscribing. And I do a lot of other stuff here that's really Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. We just have to review some Rings of Power because, I mean, it is relevant to the fact in this pop culture right now. I have a feeling that this will be come and go very quickly, where it'll be watched and everyone will forget about it later. Maybe not. It might still be fun to watch occasionally for entertainment, but I don't. Yeah. The locations are great. Locations are great. I love how everything looks, and some of the characters are good. Farazan's very good. Elendil is very good. Elrond is good. Durin is good. Gil-galad in episode 5 didn't feel... He was good at first, but he felt too, like, sneaky to me. That's not Gil-galad in the books to me. Galadriel, you all know how I feel about that. Muriel, she's actually a decent actress. But, of course, a lot of stuff that she's doing is made up. Isildur, so far, he's fine. He's kind of like... No offense to him. Like, he's a good actor, but the stuff they've given him just, to me, so far has felt kind of like, okay. Kind of like, since he's such a big character in the books and the story has kind of felt kind of generic, you know? Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Subscribe button's there. Next episode will be up there for my views on, or opinions, my opinion playlist. And over there's a load to tell my main content and Lord of the Rings Online with voiceovers. So check them out. Have a great day, Middle Earth. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've earned it. And I'll see you all in the next episode of Voice of the Rings. See ya.